Oh, hello there, folks. We're here out and about, and we're going to be discussing a early 70s adventure comedy, a little bit of fantasy and musical, and it has a aspiring legend, Miss Angela, later on Dame Angela Lansbury, and a few moments, if you blink, of Mr. Roddy McDowell. Oh, so hey, Matt. The last place that we went to was pretty nifty, but well, I don't know. Before you show me the next place, I think we ought to just stop for a little bit here at this picnic table because, well, I haven't had a bite to eat all day, and I'm curious to see what Lula May has whipped up for lunch here. Although you will have to tell me when there's anything suspect in here because I am still learning what her specialties are.
Well, hello, mother darling. I just think it would be wonderful for us to sit here at this beautiful American picnic table. And would you like a can of cat food? We have
Oh,
several. They might be a little expired, but I think you would enjoy the tender victuals.
mm.
Yes.
I mean, the little
Do you know how to ask for the cat food?
what is the proper way?
Meow, 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 meow. Oh, mother darling, meow, 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 meow. Anyway, hello. I am in the spirit for the Halloween. I was
Oh.
going to do Rhoda Morgenstern, but instead this just spoke to me. Spoke to me and it said, "Oh, mother darling, get me a couple flanks so I can do a little routine."
There will be a dance later.
There will. Oh, with sparklers and a sweet little full body. What do you call it? Swimsuit.
Oh, and
What do you call it in these modern
the One
times?
Piece.
Oh yes, stars and stripes, my friend.
I
Anyway, you asked me a question. I don't remember it at all.
I just hope that you didn't use that hairspray because those sparklers might clash a little bit with it.
Oh, I did use the hairspray, but it burned, if you know what I mean.
Oh, so let's see here. Edit. Let's see. Oh, we kind of already did some of the talking part here, but well, I can narrate. So, do you want to read this or do I? During the
Oh,
Battle of Britain.
whichever you
Okay, so
prefer.
during the Battle of Britain, Angela Lansbury plays a cunning Tuens witch in training who decides to use her supernatural powers to defeat the Nazi menace with the aid of three inventive children who've been evacuated. No, not what you're thinking. From the London Blitz. There's no coffee involved. Just in time for Halloween. It's 1971's Bedknobs and Broomsticks, or as our friend Tommy has said, well, actually, I can't repeat that on the show, but you know what you meant to say, Tommy.
Bedknobs and broomsticks can be a girl's best friend on a cold winter's evening.
Oh, by the warmth of the open hearth, I'm sure.
Yes, of course.
All right. So while Lula May is digging out the sandwiches, we're going to get the show underway. Oh, so Matt, this is a film from 1971. I was not even a twinkle in anyone's eye yet, but um, we sometimes like to remind people of what the world was like when this film came out. So we're going to tell you a bit about the important things that happened in 71. In 1971, the 26th Amendment was added to the Constitution, lowering the voting age from 21 to 18. It was ratified on July 1st of that year. So, it is election season as you're listening to this, folks. So, if you've got some kiddos in high school, check the birthdays, because if they're 18, they may be able to vote in their first election this year. So do us a favor and, make a step for progress here. Also in 71 in April, so about Easter time, 500,000 people marched in Washington, D.C., participating in the largest anti-war demonstration in U.S. history. So it was 71. Can you guess what was going on? This was to seal the outcome of the Vietnam War, folks. We had decided to step in because communism was threatening the nation of Korea, and, well, it took us a long time to get out, but we eventually did. And in 71, the Walt Disney World Resort, also known as Disney World, because, we charge by the letters in the paper, opened on October 1st of 71, and it is located about 20 miles southwest of Orlando, Florida. And in case you're wondering why we're talking about the Walt Disney World Resort, well, the folks at the Mouse House paid for this movie we're talking about tonight.
That's very true. They paid bigly.
And so there were some little Bambinos that came across doorsteps back in 71. And, they're all grown up nowadays, and some of them are still turning heads. Matt, who
And
were
the
the
celebrities? The celebrities.
Yes.
Yeah. So starting with singers, Snoop Dogg, he likes to indulge, so we say. He also, let's see, Mary J. Blige, Dido, not Ditto, Dido, and Missy Elliott. Those were the singers. Now, also Justin Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister, and my future husband, because he is getting a divorce, from what I understand. And then Ricky Martin, who is an openly gay singer and actor, and my other future gay husband, maybe at the same time, but we'll deal with that when the time comes.
I hear he likes feet.
He can touch my feet all day long. Anyway, then there's also Jared Leto, who is best known from the Dallas Buyers Club.
And he's Katy Perry's ex-husband, too.
He was also the ex-husband of someone else that just left my mind.
You know what?
The Charlie's Angels girl.
I'm actually wrong. It was not Jared Leto. Jared Leto played a version of the Joker, and I'm thinking of the guy who played in the remake of Arthur. He's British. I'm forgetting his name.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I was okay. I don't even remember who the actor was that you're talking about, but I remember reading that and thinking, him? Really? Oh, it's the crazy guy, isn't it? Oh, yeah. I don't want to. Anyway, So, but who's not crazy and who's really cool is David Tennant.
Oh, absolutely.
Was one of the Doctor Who's. We also have David.
He's a big supporter of the community as well.
Absolutely, and I think he'd pitch if there was a shortage. I think he'd be a pitch hitter, but whatever. We also have David Williams, who is part of the community, if you know what I mean.
Oh, he was the only gay in the village.
Yes, no.
Oh,
that was Matt Smith. That was Matt.
It was Matt Lucas.
I don't know. Yes, thank you. I was like, it's Matt somebody or other.
David Williams has been a judge on The Voice, hasn't he?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and of course, Little Britain as what confused us. Then we have Jeremy Renner, who was Hawkeye from the Avengers, and the one who just got over that horrible accident being run over by like a snowplow. And then we have Michael C. Hall, who was Dexter, and Ewan McGregor, who was the hot,
Oh,
delicious young Obi-Wan Kenobi.
he could be my uncle any day.
He could be my third husband. Then we have Nathan Fillion from Firefly, who is an iconic sci-fi actor.
And very
We
easy
have
on the eyes.
Oh, yeah, very easy on everything. Then we have Sean Astin from The Goonies and The Lord of the Rings.
And
Old Mr. Frodo. You know, it's so sad what he did to Frodo.
oh well,
He
I know
went
he.
with him,
Mhm.
and what did he do? You tell me.
Oh, I was just going to say that he's Patty Duke's son.
Yes, yes, actually he is, and he's also John Astin's son. I'm feeling much better now. Um, but yeah, the Lord of the Rings, when he was like, "Oh, Mr. Frodo, I'll be with you forever. Oh, you're the one that I love." And then, like at the end of the movie, he's like, "You know what I'd like to do? Go back and marry that girl from the village."
Mhm.
You traitor. Anyway, also Sacha Baron Cohen, Alfonso Ribeira, who inspired the meme dance.
Mhm.
We have Sean Wayans, actress Jada Pinkett Smith, Indina Menzel, who was in Wicked, which not the movie. I mean, she may appear, but she isn't the best
Sh-
part of it.
She had her name butchered by John Travolta at the Academy
Oh
Award.
my gosh, I remember that. Edina Munzalelli. Whatever. All right. We also have Amy Poehler and, of course, Shannon Doherty from Charmed, who passed just a few months ago.
Mm.
But
So
yes, all
the
these people are about my age,
so
just 1 year younger.
the question Mr.
Mhm.
Sacha Baron Cohen, have you ever seen anything he's done?
So, I mean, yes, I have.
I've
I
I've
am, yeah.
I've watched Borat, but I watched the stereotypical gay movie that he did called Bruno. And
Oh,
I will
okay.
tell you that his films are much more entertaining with a little libation.
Oh, yes. Well, and that's the thing, especially if you're someone like me who like those types of movies are like I just feel embarrassed for them.
Mhm.
And then because I'm not enjoying the joke, I'm more like, going, "Oh my God, I could never do that."
How much is
But
left of
yeah,
this?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah.
Oh, well, so Bedknobs and Broomsticks, folks, it was a movie. It came out to theaters. You had to wait in line to go see it. Maybe if you were lucky, you left your kids at home, but it was a
Ah,
Disney movie, so there was a chance they were coming along for the ride. And I don't know about you. I didn't get to the movies very often. I know, Matt, we talked in the last episode about movie going was not a big thing growing up. I
yeah.
remember my cousins, my uncle, their dad went to seminary school. So anyone who goes to school for a degree, you don't have that much money. These kids not hadn't gone to the movies very much. And I remember one movie we went to for one of their birthdays. This was even before they're like 10 years old. I could not get through the movie without them just yap, yap, yap the whole way. And I'm like, oh my God.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So okay. So but yes, if you were the movie going sort of person back in 71 when this came out, maybe you haven't caught the other movies that came out that year. So let's talk a little about them. One of the top of the box office movies in 71 was a film called Billy Jack. It brought in 98 million, and it was kind of not really an action hero, but there was some martial arts that might have been
Mm.
made up and choreographed and whatnot, because it was well, I don't know that if he was white, but he had a circle of friends in this movie that had people of all different backgrounds. And in at least the first storyline, it took place near a reservation, but a place with indigenous people. Anyways, in 71
Mm.
also we had Fiddler on the Roof. uh,
If I were a rich man.
I saw that performed in a theater, and it was one of those dinner theater places um, where some of the cast actually were servers, and
Ah, yeah.
this was quite the place. It doesn't exist anymore, sadly, but in Denver they had a place called the Country Dinner Playhouse, and it was shaped like a barn, and the upper story of the barn was a hay loft, if you catch my air quotes, and the stage was on hydraulics. So when they went to change the sets, the stage actually rose into the hay loft, and then they changed it and brought back down. So it was quite the experience. And then they also had sort of what do you call them? Not alleys or lanes, but the rows that the tables were set up in were on diagonals. So like you were coming to get a seat at a theater or stadium. So, anyways, it was quite the thing to behold. I saw Fiddler Roof on the roof there. Diamonds Are Forever, Matt.
I actually performed in that theater,
Yeah.
and it was horrible because when the thing started to drop back down, I wasn't fully changed yet, and it was just a huge kerfuffle. Mother was so embarrassed when she saw me.
I mean, it's so good that you invested in that collection of Merkins.
No, if only I had had a whole mercantile at that time.
So, Diamonds Are Forever. Is this a Bond film, Matt?
Most likely, but I have no idea. Yeah,
And we,
I was sadly not even one at this time.
and there's also the French Connection, which I hear is a chase film where we're, in cars and racing after each other. Then there's also Love Story, which is a film that we actually talked about before on Matinee Minutia a season or two ago. And then The Owl and the Pussycat. And I'll have to ask you, Matt, is this something that you're familiar with?
The Owl and the Pussycat. Meow, meow, meow. No, I'm familiar with the Pussycats and the 24 of them that are invading our yard every night to have a little
Hmm.
nosh. But other than that, no, actually, I don't.
Oh my
Oh wait,
goodness.
now was this Mr. Rogers? Like Owl lived in the thing, and then Henrietta Pussycat. Meow 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 meow. Owl meow meow being a poop head meow meow.
Oh, not entirely. It had George Segal and Babs, Barbara Streisand.
Oh.
And this was such a charming movie. It reminds me of something that Goldie Hawn might have done. So I was confused in who was the lead in this, but of course I read it and it's Barbara Streisand. And I've watched it, but it was so funny because Barbara Streisand plays this woman who's trying to get out of town in the old West days, and she ends up hiding out in this town. And George Segal's character comes to the rescue because he's passing through town and he's her ticket out. But
Mm.
one of the performances in the movie is it's sort of burlesque dancing. And she's not very good at it because Babs likes to be comedic. And she
Mhm.
has like this fruit hat
Mm.
on, like Carmen Miranda almost. And her song is singing about the fruit. And she's like, you can pick the daisies or whatever, but please don't touch the plums. And then she, of course, covers up her chest when she sings about the plums. So
Funny. I'll have to watch that one.
yeah, so a lot of interesting films in 71. Of course, there was Mr. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange.
What a piece of poo. I mean, that was a very interesting film.
Well, everything Stanley Kubrick did was very interesting. Some of the
Avant-garde.
avant-garde, yes. I actually, A Clockwork Orange was something that I remember sneaking into the living room in the middle of the night to watch.
Ugh.
Actually, it wasn't the living room. Technically, it was the family room because it was the basement. But
Uh,
whenever you got the like the TV guide or whatever, and it suggested like there was nudity or whatever, in a
mhm.
conservative household, you know that the things that you're not supposed to watch is the stuff you really want to watch.
Definitely.
So I watched A Clockwork Orange, and yeah, that's what happened to me. Um,
Explains so
Willy
much.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory came out in '71, and bringing us one of Gene Wilder's most famous performances. We also
Yes.
had Dirty Harry and Clint
Well,
Eastwood.
do you punk?
Clint Eastwood in his version of drag back then, of course. And The Last Picture Show, which is another one of those movies where I'm pretty sure it wasn't Glenn Close, but I don't think it was Meryl Streep. Um, that was a
Yeah.
The Last Picture Show wasn't George Lucas, was it?
I honestly I don't know.
That's one of the ones that I have to know. Oh, I'm thinking American Graffiti. American Graffiti was a George Lucas movie, and The Last Picture Show was not. But, it's an iconic film, so I am going to look up The Last Picture Show, and I'll edit this out because I really want to sound smart. Let's see. Last Picture Show. Ha! Timothy Bottoms. Ba-dum-bum. What else does he do? Jeff Bridges, Sybil Shepherd. Oh,
Oh
okay.
wow.
Okay, I have to watch this again because I don't think I've watched it all. Although it does have Randy Tinfoil Hat Quaid in it. Um,
Oh
Eileen Brennan, and she's
wow. You have to watch it now.
of all the things to watch because there's only one cast member in it, Eileen Brennan, because my first exposure honk to her was watching Private Benjamin. And
Yes.
the moment as I saw her as that sergeant, I was like, oh my God, who is this fabulous beast?
Yep. And she was on a TV show too. She's such a brilliant person.
My favorite program that she's been in that we've discussed on the show
Mhm.
was Murder by Death, and
Yes.
that had Peter Falk in it as well. But this cast, oh
Now,
my gosh,
did you watch her as Jack's teaching instructor on Will and Grace?
no, I thought that was
Oh my God. It would be good for you to just go Google her clips.
yeah.
Google, YouTube, her clips
Mhm.
teaching him how to act. She's priceless. So priceless.
Oh, so Matt,
Yes.
as we've said before, a movie is told just like, well, actually, let me rewind. Okay, so when a movie is made, it's adapted from something called a screenplay. So it's written like a piece of theater. And of course, as we all know, theater is presented to us in 3 acts. So the beginning of this story, Bedknobs and Broomsticks from 1971, we raise the curtain on the English countryside, and we are brought to the exposition.
I was asked to be an exposition once, but, well, I wasn't that kind of girl.
Go ahead with the exposition.
Oh, please, yes. So Miss Eglantine Price is a seemingly ordinary woman who secretly is an apprentice witch studying through a correspondence course. And the arrival of 3 evacuated children who are placed in her care during World War II, leading to the discovery of her magical abilities, with the children witness her attempts at flying on a broomstick. Flying, I said, thus revealing her secret and setting up the stage for their subsequent adventures together, using enchanted bedknobs and to access powerful spells. Quick little note: I can hear you breathing. Like, yeah.
Oh, is that
And I
better?
don't mean I can just hear you breathing. I mean I can like hear you gasping for air.
Hmm.
So you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut instead of being
Or maybe
a mouth
my
breather.
anyway, I just want you to know because I know that will drive you crazy on recording.
Mm-hmm. So Matt, the
Yes.
yes, so the storyteller, the person that gives us their perspective of the program is the person behind the character, the director. Tell us something about the director, Mr. Robert Edward Stevenson. And as far as I know, he's not related to that other Stevenson guy who has written literature, Robert Lewis.
Robert Louis Stevenson. Okay, that was a stretch there. That was very
Ah.
ADHD, like, piecing it together, bringing it back, forming a map. But yeah, no, I don't think so. But yes, Robert Edward Stevenson, who was born on March 3rd, 1905. And then sadly, well, we'll talk about that later. First, let's talk about his life, because he was a British American screenwriter and film director. And he was known mostly for a lot of work in the British cinema and, of course, in Hollywood. But he was born in Buxton, Derbyshire, England. Derbyshire. He began his career writing the story Balaclava in 1928. And he made his directorial debut in the musical Happily Ever After in 1932. So he was in it early. He moved to Hollywood and was contracted by David Selznick, where he directed films like Jane Eyre in 1943. But his most iconic work came from his working with the amazing Walt Disney Studios, where he directed 19 of the live-action films, including Mary Poppins in 1964, which earned him Oscar nomination for Best Director. His final film was The Shaggy DA, which was one of my faves as a kid, in 1976, which marked the end of his remarkable career. His films included The Love Bug, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and he was just like, he had this legacy of family entertainment that inspired so many of us kids from the late 70s and early 80s who were watching it, of course, in reruns on the Disney Sunday movie. And of course, he passed away sadly in Santa Barbara, California in 1986. And of course, there's Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks share some interesting history, which we may talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, and realizing now that he also did Mary Poppins, it explains a lot about how he might have been, contracted or recruited to do Bedknobs and Broomsticks, because, as you said, there are a few things in common. Now, I have to admit, not being from California, I read, oops, I'm revealing a little bit here. When Robert Edward Stevenson passed away, not realizing it was a location, I thought, did he have a guest appearance on a soap opera? Santa Barbara.
Yeah. Understandable. Now, one of the things that it doesn't talk about in we don't have like when we talk trivia a little bit later, this is one of the things that I learned that isn't there, is that the two movies were actually kind of, Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks were kind of being shot at the same time. And so Disney was putting so much into it that they actually would like pause on one production and go work on the other for a while, and then they would come back and work on the other for a while. So yeah, anyway.
And I think that the Sherman brothers, who did so much music for Disney, also worked on elements of the Bedknobs and Broomsticks as well.
I believe so.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So we know that there's a boatload of talent that goes into making something like a movie. And I'm going to start talking to you about the leading lady, Miss Angela. Some might call her Dame. You know that brings another meaning to that old song of "There's nothing like a dame."
There's nothing like a dame. Nothing. I
So,
did that in live theater once too, but it confused people.
because you were nothing like a dame then.
I was tucked.
I mean, it's not your fault the nylons had a run, but you could have waxed. Uh, so
Tragic, David. Tragic.
Dame Angela Bridget Lansbury was born. Oh, she's an October lady. October 16th
She's a
is.
Libra. It doesn't count.
Oh, okay. So she was not close enough to cross the line. Oh. October 16th back in 25, and for you younger folks, it's 1925. And she was a British American and Irish actress whose remarkable career spanned 8 decades across film, television, and stage. She was born in Merry Old London to an Irish actress and an English politician. Well, there's a story behind there, I'm sure. And
Mm.
she moved to the US in 1940 to escape the Blitz, which was a real thing, and it was in her backyard. So she came to the States to find some safety. And after studying acting in New York, of course, her career breakthrough came from The Manchurian Candidate in 1962, which is hailed as one of her finest performances at that point in her career. On Broadway, Lansbury became a star, I tell you, with Mame in 66, which, of course, other iterations of, including the film that was made, starred Miss Lucille Ball, and, well, we all know it's supposed to be a singing part, but.
Wow. Well, do you know that actually Angela Lansbury's Mame on Broadway was so popular that Lucy actually came to see the show and took notes on her performance to incorporate into the movie.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Wow. So this Mame got her for the first of her 6 Tony Awards. Dame Angela Lansbury also gained recognition in musicals such as Gypsy, probably as Mama Rose, and Sweeney Todd. Lansbury achieved international fame as Jessica Fletcher in the 80s, mid 80s, in Murder, She Wrote. And
It's what was her name?
Jessica.
Aunt Jessica's coming. Run! You are all gonna die.
No, I do know that over the storied run of that show, there were many attempts to involve the author, Miss Jessica Fletcher, into a love affair. But
Mm,
Dame Angela Lansbury was very committed to keeping her as a strong, independent woman. So
mhm.
go away, networks. I'm not buying it. Lansbury received numerous accolades, including an Academy Honorary Award and a Lifetime Achievement Tony Award. And more recently, she passed away in 2022.
On coming out day, sadly.
Mm,
Many gays
October
cried that
11th.
day.
Mm. But, we could celebrate her life because she had a long and storied history there.
Yes.
So, Matt, now we're going to
What?
talk about the leading man on this story. And he looks a little bit like I'm dressed in this film, a little bit ready for the English countryside because, there's a breeze out there and it gets a little chilly sometimes. Mr. David Tomlinson played Professor Emilius Brown.
Yes, and actually he was born David Cecil McAllister Tomlinson, which he was born on May 7th, which makes him an Aries, but we will forgive him. Wait, no, he's a Taurus.
Hmm.
Huh? That's a little better. We're good. All right. So Anyway, he was an English stage, film, and television actor, singer, and comedian, and very good at all of them. Best known, of course, for his roles in the Walt Disney classics, which he actually became a beloved figure for his portrayal as George Banks in, that's right, Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins, 1964. That doesn't make sense, but we'll address that later. Okay, but he was Professor Emilius Brown in Bedknobs and Broomsticks and Thorndyke in The Love Bug, 1968, one of my favorite little films. Anyway, he was described as both a leading man and a character actor, and he posthumously was inducted into the Disney as a Disney legend in 2002. 2002.
Took him
He
a
was a
while.
legend way before that. Yes, very much so. He was born in Henley-on-Thames, Oxfordshire, and of course he was a flight lieutenant in the RAF, which is the Royal Air Force during World War II. And a lot of these folks that we're talking about right now in this film were actually like displaced when they were younger because of this, and that's one of the reasons that they immigrated to America. Anyway, he retired from acting in 1980 to focus on his 4 sons and his marriage of 47 years, which was actually his second marriage. And then, of course, he peacefully passed away in 2000 at the age of 83. But one of the things that was so amazing about him is not only was he an amazing character actor, but he also, like in this film, he was considered the leading man. He was the romantic leading man as well, which was pretty cool because he was not the stereotypical pretty boy, who you'd think would be cast in that type of role.
Because even though it involved people of British extraction, this was a Disney film, so probably wasn't filmed over there, as we say.
Right.
So it's interesting watching this as a kid. I remember seeing David Tomlinson in The Love Bug first, and he played sort of a dastardly character in that because he was a dealer who sold collectible cars or, sports cars. And so because he played a dastardly character, when I saw previews for Bedknobs and Broomsticks, now mind you, this is many years later on home video or on maybe on the Disney Channel. I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure I'm going to like it that much because I didn't like the part that he played. But I wasn't old enough to understand that people who play characters that you really hate are people who are talented because you've been convinced that that's who they are.
Yes, if they're making you hate them, if they're getting you to emote something, they're doing their job. And trust me, it took me a while to learn that.
I
Not
mean,
everybody's Kaylee Cuoco, where you just can't stand her because she's annoying. But
or she's Bill Shatner's fake daughter on TV.
Okay.
What was I going to say?
I don't know, girl, but
it was let's see, it was Love Bug, Dastardly Care. Oh yes, so yeah. On a similar note, I don't think that there's many people who could have played the Borg Queen as well as Alice Krieg.
Oh, she was so good at making go just
And hubby has had some experience with convention going, and he said that he went to one of the first ones that she attended after First Contact came out. And she was used to theater audiences because she's a theater actress. And there were all these fans coming up to her with merchandising. She wasn't following the rules the studio would have liked. She was signing anything and everything. And they're all like, don't you understand? Now that you've put your signature on this is worth something. And she's like, oh, She's signing everything for everyone.
Hey, eBay, here we come.
Exactly. So as we move along in the story, we enter into Act Two. The complication: the other shoe has dropped. A missing final spell, forcing Miss Price, Professor Brown, and the children to travel to the lost Isle of Naboombu to find the words to the spell. And the children and Miss Price are taken hostage by German soldiers who raid their cottage and must find a way to escape.
Now, did you like the cartoon stuff?
I thought it was charming. It appealed
Okay.
to me when I was a kid, and I can
Mm.
see where, at the time that this film was made back in 71, those were
Mm.
some impressive effects because,
Well, and they were award-winning effects too, actually.
mhm,
But yeah, the and Mary Poppins had that whole middle segment where they danced with fish or whatever happened. Uh yeah, so and I know a lot of people love it, but I just I don't care for it. I'm like, this whole thing is just like, this is the part to keep the kids awake. And uh,
it's interesting how things not evolve but have different implications as you watch it as an adult versus as a child. And more
mhm.
recently, I have learned something now. It's only a very minor part in the movie, but at one point, they're on the bed and they have journeyed to the island of the Boom Boom, but they
Mhm.
have fallen into the bay because, you know,
Yes.
uh, they're not. They don't have their pilot's license for flying beds.
Mhm.
Anyways, but there is all these this aquatic life dancing around, and there was a little seahorse at one point in time that fluttered by her. So I recently learned something quite interesting. Do you know what they call a transgender man who is expecting a child?
Yes.
A
Yes, I do.
seahorse. I
Yes.
didn't know that. I saw a social media video recently, and I just thought, oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, because the male seahorses carry the little seahorses basically to term once they're pregnant. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And in science
But
fiction,
it's very interesting.
in science fiction on Alien Nation, the Tenctonese, they share their pregnancy. The woman gives birth to a pod, and then the man nurses it until it emerges as a full-grown child. Well, not
Right.
child, but
Yeah.
infant. So,
Hmm,
um,
hmm.
so let's see here. So we have trying to figure out the connection here, but I can edit. So
Sure.
Eglantine reluctantly agrees to temporarily take in the three children who've been evacuated from London. Charlie, played by Ian Wayhill, Carrie, played by Cindy O'Callaghan, and Paul, played by Roy Snart. No, I didn't sneeze. That's his name. I did a little reading on the children, and
Yeah.
apparently, Roy Snart
Hmm,
continued acting for a while, did some voice work. I
hmm.
believe Ian Wayhill didn't do acting for much longer. And Cindy O'Callaghan actually ended up becoming a soap opera star for a while.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Although some Disney films have sad stories with the children. I think in Mary Poppins, one of the children passed away a few years after the movie was
No. Well, the sad story with these children is one of them was named Snart.
made.
So.
Exactly. But I mean, they got to fly around on a bed, and you have to admit, though, here's the discussion of the story, folks. So you've got these children who maybe have street smarts because they come to us from London. They're not country children,
From poorer families too. Yeah.
right? Now they're fortunate because they actually are allegedly blood relations, but in that day and age, people just went to homes where there were some you didn't necessarily end up staying with. all parts of your family. But anyways, these children probably had some street smarts, and certainly the oldest boy, Charlie, seemed to think that he had a way of getting around things and managing life, because they are plotting to leave in the middle of the night after they've gotten to Miss Price's cottage, knowing that she's not found the children, although she's fed them and put them to bed.
Right.
And so, of course, what happens when they are trying to carry out their plot to leave in the middle of the night, Matt?
Well, they end up finding that, Eglantine is practicing flying on her broom. She's a witch. So what does Charlie do?
Well, he decides that he is going to make the best of that opportunity, because now we have a secret and we have something to barter with.
Right. So why don't we just try to blackmail a witch? Yeah, that's gonna work.
Oh,
Really? Come on.
oh, but it works out well in the children's favor, because Miss Price does not have anything to offer in terms of money or jewels or anything like that. But she does offer a spell, which I'm surprised the children took her up on, because she wasn't very good at what she did at the time.
Oh, I know. It was the only spell that actually worked, well, for the most part. But, the rest of them, she's just like, ah! Anyway.
And, of course, she offers them the famous traveling spell. And
On a Bedknob.
right, of all things. But, of course, that was the perfect opportunity for us to not only present the fact that these children have street smarts, and the oldest one thinks that he has a way with his words, but the youngest is actually learned from that bad example, because he's a little klepto. He had
yes, he stole her bread knob.
He turned out his pockets, and he had all of these odd things, like a piece of string, a piece of glass, and whatever. It's just like, oh my gosh.
But, if you get into the psychology of it, yeah, he's a little klepto, but at the same time, the things that he's taken are things that are probably more trying to cling to memories. I think that might have been it was Disney in the 70s, so they didn't really have psychology. I mean, things that they did to those children.
Right.
Yeah. They're like, hey, let's just, drop you in the ocean. Nobody will be scared by that. So, yeah.
We'll put you to work in the the mill at the park.
We'll play with a lion that's, has a bad temper. Okay.
Oh, you almost died? Well, we'll pay you lots to forget that.
Right.
But of course, and I'm forgetting her name. Oh, I guess, didn't they just call this the girl Carrie?
Oh. Yes, actually, I think they did.
Yeah. So Carrie
probably because she couldn't remember a character name. So.
Right. But Carrie was the only one who really didn't get to contribute much. I mean, yes, she did all of these stereotypical feminine things, like played with the dolls, and she was polite, and she didn't speak up, and soft-spoken and all that, but she pretty much went on with the group. But yes, they discovered that Miss Price was a witch, and so of course they decided to bargain for that, in that she was going to do as they asked, because they had a secret now to hold over her head. So Matt, when was the first time that you saw this?
Oh my stars! Gosh, it had to have been probably around the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, this wasn't one that I got exposed to as a little kid. But when I was finally able to watch it, I mean, I loved it. I loved everything about it. And when I watched it again for the show, I loved everything about it. I own it. It's great. the cartoon bit could be cut out and I wouldn't miss it, but the rest of it, I think it's an absolutely wonderful film. And of course back then a lot of stories, even children's stories, revolved around fighting the Germans, uh, because it's
Mm-hmm.
basically was a huge, even then. I mean, that was only what, about 20-25 years after World War II,
Uh-huh.
so it was still a very big storyline. But it was wonderfully done.
I'm not one of those folks that has to have everything Disney's ever made in
Mm.
my home, but there are certainly a number of Disney things that have a special place in my heart. And I was very fortunate. I didn't have an unhappy childhood. My parents did the best that they could. We didn't ever have to want for much. But, growing up as a gay kid in the country who had at least one conservative parent, I had my moments where I needed something happy, and Disney filled the bill for that now and then. And
Mm-hmm.
certainly musicals, of course. I mean, as adults, we think about the peoples that are in the cast, and especially if there's a troupe of dancers in there, and it's like, oh, how many of those go to my church? And something that should be mentioned is that there are a couple of versions of the film that are out there.
Yes.
And of course, one of them has more footage. Now, the majority of the footage takes place about the middle of the film, and this is where they've gone to London. And Miss Price is looking for Professor Brown because she is doing something actually very modern for the time. I mean, nowadays we have people who, do online classes and get their degrees. She was doing a correspondence course for her learning, and was due to find out that the school she was attending, and no, it wasn't who
Hogwarts.
universe. I was gonna say
Oh, yes.
it wasn't whose university. Um,
Yes.
Although it probably might have been in that something of that in its day. Um, but she learns that the school is closing down, and she really wants that last spell, and that actually advances us in the story here, because we're talking about the resolution is that she uses her magical bedknob and the broomsticks to defend her town against German invasion with the help of a ghostly army she raises with her magic. So when she learns that the school is shutting down and she was awaiting her next course, Matt, what was Miss Price hoping to learn through her correspondence course?
So it was basically a spell that would animate inanimate objects, such as suits of armor and different, well, whatever she chose to do. Did you notice that? Did you notice one of the things that was sent to her um, from the correspondence course that was like mailed to her?
Well, she got a broom, right?
Right, but before that, she got
Was it the poisoned dragon's liver?
no, although that was one of the things, yes.
I'm not sure I know.
The cat.
Oh, yes. Okay. And the cat's name was
Oh, I forget. Uh-oh.
Cosmic Creepers.
Oh, that's right. And but can you imagine the well, I guess what would you call them? The
Oh,
post
yes.
mistress when she gets a cat. Here, this
Oh,
cat. It was just, send her a cat. That's fine.
I mean,
Um, yeah.
historically speaking, though, I think you can, this might provoke some of our listeners.
Mm,
You could actually Google the history of postal service and postage and whatnot.
mm.
It wasn't until I think after the Great Depression that they finally outlawed sending people in the mail, because people used to actually send their children, to go live with grandma, kind of a thing.
Well, I thought that was
And you froze up. I'll give you.
they did that, but yes, I was looking. So she was looking for that last spell.
And it was. And do you remember the
Yeah.
name of the spell?
No, I don't actually. Off the top of my head.
Substitutionary
Oh,
locomotion.
they had a whole song about it, and I forgot it. Yeah. Although it was funny because, like, when so when the spell is 5 words, right?
Mhm.
And then when they start singing the spell, they end up running like the first two. They say the first 2 words, and they run the last 3 together, and I'm like, you can't do that. It's a spell. You have to keep it separate. And they were like running the words together. And like, that's not right. Don't do that. You don't know what's gonna happen. But yeah, it was a wonderful little film. I just really enjoyed watching it again.
I mean, when they started trying to practice the spell, you know, Miss Price, Angela Lansbury was admitting, she goes, well, I'm not very good at this. And of course, Professor Brown was trying to butter her up because he thought she was a little something.
He
And
thought she was the bee's knees.
exactly. And he says to her, oh, my dear, you're fine. You know, you just have to learn to do things with a flair. And, you know, those old magicians and wizards, they were just, you know, theatrics and whatever.
Yep.
So, you know, it's like you just have to, and that's where they go into song because, you know, you have to have a certain fluidity if you're going to use these words. You have to be comfortable with them and they have to come out with confidence. So, you know, ergo, here's our musical act.
Yep.
But
And they did.
but I remember as a kid watching this, and I was traveling with some friends. We were going to the Smithsonian, I think, at the time for the Star Trek 25th anniversary exhibit.
Oh.
But this one friend of mine who may have actually been pagan or Wiccan was saying to me, because I was quoting lines from the movie and I was repeating 1 or 2 of the spells allegedly, and she's like, "You shouldn't be saying those words if you don't know what they mean."
Yes, there is that there is that thought too, but you know, yeah.
But yes,
Yikes.
so substitutionary locomotion, and I can tell you that the words to that fateful song or spell is Triguna Macoides Tricorum Sanctus D. And you know, when they were looking for the words to the spell, they had a book that had been torn apart. And as we mentioned, in part of their journey, they went to this fantasy island. Well, not the one from the TV show, but
they played.
from a children's storybook. And what was it? In the end, well, this is more of a spoiler. When they lost the object with the spell on it, how did they find the words again, Matt?
Well, the little book that they had that the little kid had kleptoed through the whole movie and all that other stuff, he's like, well, I had the words right here. Nobody would listen to him. He's like, I know the spell. The whole time he's like, I know the spell. And they're like, no, shut up. We don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a kid. And then finally he's like, here it is. It's like you could have saved us that whole middle part with all those cartoons if you had just shown that book. But anyway, yeah, so he had it all along.
I mean, I don't know if this were done today, if it would be any better, because I don't know if people are more used to paying attention to children or not.
I don't know, but back then it really was kind of like a, oh, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I'll do.
Yeah, as I say, children
Yeah.
should be seen and not heard, is what they used to say.
Well, I still believe that, but that's another story.
How much of the Halloween candy are you keeping for yourself?
Oh, lights out, Netflix in the bedroom. I don't even know. Doorbell disconnected. No, that's my candy.
I mean, my mom was fairly conservative and church going. I'm surprised that we got to participate in Halloween as much as we did as kids. I never had any sort of a dark character that I dressed up as. I think mostly I did tame things like ghosts or pirates or something. But thankfully, it wasn't until I was too old, quote unquote, to go trick or treating before my mother went off the deep end and, might have been handing out things at Halloween for people to repent or whatever. But,
Oh,
but
back in, we used to have children that came to our house for Halloween, and we couldn't afford candy, so what we did is we just handed out mother's old fake jewelry. It was a big hit. It was a big hit. NAS is fake, of course. But...
And then that sweet young girl, Audrey Meadows, came by, or not Audrey Meadows. Oh God, Audra Lindley came by. and then she landed that role on the Three's Company. Little did we know that was Big Edie's jewelry that Mrs. Roper was wearing.
And her wigs, but we had to get rid of those. Yes.
After they started moving on.
But we kept on Moo. She just copied that from us.
But yeah.
Fashion icon.
Right. So yeah, Halloween wasn't huge in our family, but we did go trick-or-treating. I remember the last year I went trick-or-treating. I might have been 12 or 13, but I remember that it had gotten so cold out that Halloween that the makeup that I had worn to be Casper the Ghost practically had frozen to my face. And that was also the year that I learned okay, I'm going to ask you this question, Matt.
Sure.
So how does a glow stick operate? How do you turn it on?
You break the little sucker in half.
Okay. So as a child, you don't know any better and you think to yourself,
oh no.
So you do this one thing to turn it on and I wonder how you turn it off. But I had an idea. I had a feeling that something could go wrong, so I at least did it over the bathroom sink. And then of course, it was basically like what some people's siblings did with fireflies, smash it and all over.
Yeah. I was so worried you were going to say, so I just broke it open and put it on my face.
And I've been this youthful ever since.
Well, the last time I went trick-or-treating was it was back when they had the little cheap masks that a little cheap. I was a fat kid shoved into this little skinny kid's costume of C-3PO. And basically, and then it had rained, so I had on my Wellingtons, so I had these great big heavy rubber boots, this C-3PO like costume that just did not fit, wouldn't zip up in the back kind of thing, and then one of those masks that you sweat so bad you can't see, and I'm just following around from house to house. I never went again. I was like, nope, I'm done. Yeah.
Did your family ever buy into that urban legend about having to have your candy x-rayed?
I think the last year we had something like that, but no, I was well past when they started doing that. But I remember on the news they would have like centers where you could go and have your candy looked at by professionals and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, really? Just don't eat the apple. I mean, who hands out apples anymore? Come on. And then it turned out it was all fake.
Oh, but, yeah. I want to say it was something like the aspirin story. I forgot all the details.
But, when I was a little kid and going from door to door, I mean, they would hand out like caramel popcorn balls and little bags of pennies and things like that. Here's a cupcake. Okay, thanks, stranger. It was a different time. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have kids, but I hear tell, there's very little that your kids can actually take to school these days. It basically all has to be prepackaged stuff, and it has to be, allergy free or whatever. It's like,
well,
let's send you to school with a sponge.
pretty much. Well, and as one of the comedians said these days, look, drugs are so expensive. I'm not going to waste it trying to get your kid high. Those are mine. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so okay. I'm having software tell me to install, and I'm like, no. You skip all, and we'll just minimize that macro. Okay. So, we're going to mention a few things that you may not know about the making of this film. This is the nooks and the crannies, the trivia. So the film has its roots in a true story based somewhat on the Christian occultist Dion Fortune, who, with others, practiced magic during the war efforts against Nazi Germany.
And see, obviously we won. So, hey, yeah.
And what about Miss Julie Andrews, Matt?
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about Julie. Okay, so she initially turned down the role of Miss Eglantine Price. She was offered the role, and she said, "Oh no, I couldn't possibly." And then suddenly she's all like, "Well," she reconsidered, basically believing that she owed her movie career to Walt Disney. So she decided she wanted to work there again, and she's like, "Oh, I've reconsidered. I will take this wonderful role." And the studio's all like, "Sorry, girl. We have Angela Lansbury." And so, yeah, so Julie was like, "Oh, drat."
and she brought her own broom.
Right? That's true.
Angela Lansbury, though, even though it was a very good film, and it's very rewatchable, Angela Lansbury didn't care for the production at the time because everything was scripted, and they had expectations and timelines, and hit your mark. It's by the numbers acting is what they call it.
Yeah.
And due to the heavy special effects, the entire movie had to be storyboarded in advance, shot for shot. Every moment was predetermined, and Lansbury wasn't free to explore her character naturally. So she wasn't able to really, flesh out the role, is what they say.
Yeah, she had to, because of all the cartoon things and everything. They had to hit certain marks and be very precise. And well, yeah, she was. I understand. Sometimes you just need a little leeway, and you just can't do it with that. But one of the things that's very interesting is Roddy McDowall, who we know from Planet of the Apes and 150 million films. I mean, just very prolific, wonderful actor. And he is listed as third in this cast, but in this version, he was not even on screen at 10 minutes. In fact, I think maybe 3 minutes max. So, but he had more screen time. So what they did in 1996, there are versions out there when they kind of restored it and re-released it and everything, they added more of the scenes that he was in to give him more screen time. But even in this version that I watched, it was just like he's there for 3 scenes and that's it. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's like they put his name on the marquee just to get butts in the seat.
Pretty much, I think. Yeah. And deservedly so. I mean, he was a wonderful actor.
So one of the things that you should be aware of, folks, if you are trying to track down a physical copy of this, although I did watch it on Disney Plus because it is a Disney movie, but the version on Disney Plus is the chopped version, folks. And if you're looking for the fancy copy because you maybe have a 4K TV or a Blu-ray player, okay, what are you smoking? Because in 71 we didn't have HD, so you're not going to get it even if your TV is pretty. But the 4K version or the Blu-ray version, whichever one it was that was made more recently, it may look pretty, but it's the edited copy. You won't find the extra scenes unless you buy the ordinary everyday DVD, That's the one that's got at least, I think, 10 minutes of extra footage. And yes, I'm sorry to tell you, the extra footage is actually in the street fair, what they call Portobello Road. But
Uh,
that
yeah.
actually was a very important part of.
Interesting scene.
Yes, but to the to the credit of Disney, the
Hmm.
Portobello Road section of the film had a role in portraying diversity because you had someone from many different cultures who were
Yes.
present there. Uh,
Yeah.
you even had folks from the Caribbean. There were people who may have allegedly been from Jamaica
Mhm.
because they had steel drums playing.
Right. Yeah. And as much as, I'm sure there are some who could look at this and go, "Oh, well, their dancing and the music that they were doing is rather stereotypical." But for a 1971 movie, for any type of for that level of diversity to even be displayed in these movies was really something. And for it not to be, I mean, they didn't come out and have like a white guy playing a Chinese character and doing a really horrible accent for that level, So, I mean, it was nice.
Mm.
Not
But
perfect, but nice.
and the simple fact that Bedknobs and Broomsticks has a leading role that's a woman, not that
Hmm.
Mary Poppins didn't have a leading role as a woman, but you know, in that time frame, the leading roles were usually men. So,
Yes. Yeah, they always had a male lead, but nope, not
so
here.
nope. So yes, Bedknobs and Broomsticks from 71. You can see it on Disney Plus. And if you want to see the longer version, you're going to have to dig around to find the DVD, not the Blu-ray copy. And I was going to say that folks that live in my part of the country in the Northeast, when they ask to come over and see the house, because we uh we have a little theater set up in our house here. My husband's uncle was big into stereo systems and whatnot, and one of hubby's first jobs out of high school was working at a movie theater. So the two worlds got married, and he has always enjoyed having a home theater system, and we have a projector with a pull down screen, and so we'll often watch a movie for Matinee Minutia, for example, and see it on the big screen, like you might have been able to when something was at a theater. But where am I going with this? I'm trying to think. Um, I was talking about the DVD version of the movie, and I've lost it now. Okay.
What's a DVD?
Right. Um, Gosh, I would try. Well, maybe I'll put it in post. Who knows?
Okay.
Um, Let me scroll back here because I thought something was going to expire me, and I can't think of it right now. But let's get back to the end here. So, alrighty. So, Matt, this was a nice little picnic here, but I think that we ought to get back to I don't know where we go back to. I gotta think of something.
Lula May, stop touching me. It's just a character.
But we ought to get a move on because I've got some laundry that needs to be done. Before I don't know. I'll have to come up with something. But anyways, I've got laundry that needs to be done, so we got to get going here. And Lula May's got to get back because well, the babysitter needs to go visit their probation officer. All right, so this is a section that we call our glove box. It's a little bit about some surprises, something you might enjoy if you like things like bedknobs and broomsticks. So I will go first, and I'm going to recommend something um, in light of this being the season of bewitchery. Halloween, All Hallows Eve. Is it Samhain or Samhain? I forget which one.
Samhain.
Okay, so
Mm,
L is Samhain before Samhain?
it's not actually L. It's Sow. Sow
Oh,
like a cow. Sow
oh,
win.
oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Samhain is a different time of year.
No, that's just kind of a
A
different
pronunciation.
pronunciation, but
Oh,
it's supposed to be Samhain, which
oh.
is, when it's spelled Sam Hain, you're like, how do you get Samhain out of it? Well, you're Celtic. That's just what they do.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been to Ireland, and in Ireland they actually have signs with the Gaelic in big
Uh-huh.
letters, and then the English is in the smaller letters because you're in their country.
And it's like a totally different language. Yep.
Hmm. So I'm going to recommend a film from a handful of years later from Bedknobs and Broomsticks from 1978. This is an animated feature called Witch's Night Out. And
Ooh.
it's about a witch disgruntled by the fact that no one takes Halloween seriously anymore, decides to stir up and disrupt the social gathering in her old house, as well as turn a couple of kids who love monsters into actual monsters. And
Hmm.
the big draw to this, what's going to get you intrigued to find a copy of Witch's Night Out, is the voices are done by none other than Catherine O'Hara, which you, of course, know from Schitt's Creek, but
Hmm.
also Miss Gilda Radner, of course, from Saturday Night
Oh.
Live. And she was um, Mr. Gene Wilder, or sorry, Mrs. Gene Wilder.
Yes. Yes, she was. Just amazing woman.
So, Matt, there is something that you would like to recommend.
Well, darling, let me tell you about a little movie about Tony and Tia, who are orphan siblings, and they have extraordinary psychic powers. Well, when their abilities attract the attention of a cruel millionaire, as they do, he kidnaps them and plans to exploit their powers for financial gain, because, he's already a millionaire, but whatever, he needs more money for something.
Hmm.
Well, with the help of a bitter widower camping with a Winnebago, it was the 70s, they discover their otherworldly origins. Why, it's none other than 1975's Escape to Witch Mountain. And yes, after I saw this, I went around doing this with touching my temples and squeezing my eyes to try to make things happen, and everything did. But I was so disappointed that they turned out not to be real witches, but I don't want to spoil anything.
Well, and also, for those of you who may not have seen Escape to Witch Mountain, and we're talking about the original because in more recent years there was a remake with Dwayne the Rock
Ugh.
Johnson, but the
Ugh.
but the original starred Mr. Green Acres, Eddie Albert.
Phoenix is the place to be. Yes, and not only that, but then they had a sequel to the original
Mm-hmm.
that was not as interesting. It was fine, but it wasn't as interesting. But it starred one of the last roles of Miss Betty Davis,
Oh,
I believe.
interesting.
Now they say that, I'm like, wait a minute, was it Betty Davis?
Hmm.
I'm looking it up because that's how I roll.
Well, we were talking about the films that came out in '71, and one of them was Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka was written by children's author and
Yes.
Englishman Roald Dahl. Some of you may not be aware that Betty Davis was friends with Roald Dahl. Now, I only know this because in more recent years, I listened to a biography done by one of Betty Davis's last assistants, and
Mm,
in some of the stories she talks about how they went to dinner with Roald Dahl.
that's very cool. And
Mhm.
yes, I was right. Betty Davis was in Return from Witch Mountain.
Oh, I would think that the title would have been "We Didn't Quite Escape from Witch Mountain," but that was the HBO movie, right? Or
Yes,
or maybe
yes.
that's Hallmark, and if it's Hallmark, it probably has that right wing nut job from Full House in it.
Oh,
Oh, hey,
Miss
okay.
Candace, something, something. Ugh.
Let's just imagine for a moment if we could do a spoof on Escape to Witch Mountain with this Candace Cameron Bure, who would we cast to be her polar opposite?
Uh,
Ah, I mean,
Beyonce, Kamala
say
Harris,
anybody who's not white, basically.
anybody with half a brain cell, because you
Oh,
know that if she was the one chasing the witches at
uh,
the end of her movie version of it, she would have burned them. I'm just
right.
telling you, she would have
Actually,
won,
maybe
and
we
then
should.
it would have, yeah.
If we're gonna have not white people, maybe we should have Lucy Liu.
Oh, I love Lucy Liu. She's not crazy, is she?
I don't think so, but maybe
Oh,
I would pay good money to see Lucy Liu put Candace Cameron Bure in a headlock.
oh, that would be so cool.
Oh, internet, make it happen.
The only thing crazier than her is her brother.
Mm. Oh, and the guy who did the Not Quite Human movie that we were going to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll talk about him in another movie, but we'll forget about that part because
Right. Much like most of his roles. Um,
I don't know what happens. We can't get good roles. Let's become crazy Christians. Okay.
I mean, when they stopped selling the Amway, they had to do something, right?
Apparently.
So Matt, we're out here
Yes.
at the pickup truck because Lula May's got that appointment with her probation officer,
Lula
and
May, stop it. It's a costume. God.
looksies, no feelsies. Um, will you pick
Apparently,
up?
I remind her of her ex. But
Oh my.
okay,
Oh,
let's do the sound effect. I mean, let's do the board game. Let's
all
do this.
right.
Yay.
Let's just play that game of life.
Okay, well, next time on Matinee Minutia, a frustrated professional singer and dancer played by Liza Minnelli. That's Liza with a Z, not Liza with a Z. Liza with an S goes stalls. Prepares her dance class to give her a top 10, a top. Okay, let me try that one again. Okay. Yeah. Prepares her dance class to give a tap dance benefit and feels this event could be her opportunity to return to the stage. It's 1971's musical comedy, Stepping Out.
Repeat that last sentence, but 91.
Oh, did I say so? See, that's my little dyslexia there going on. It's 1991's musical comedy, Stepping Out.
Okay, folks. So that episode will be released for your enjoyment on Friday. Hold on here, Friday, November 15th. So that's going to be our Thanksgiving show. And this and this will be our Halloween show. So, yeah, it's time to roll out the barrel, I guess. Oh, and the other one. Whee! Oh, no hands. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and play the goodbye. Let's see. Stop.